Welcome to Lessons from a Podcaster, a show where we interview podcasters from all around the world and ask them to share their tips, insights, stories, and everything you need to know to grow your own podcast. This show is brought to you by PodSqueeze, the essential tool for any podcaster that wants to take their show to the next level. Let's get started with our host, Tiago.
Hello, Ed. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's definitely my pleasure. Let's start with your podcast. Can you describe it in less than 30 seconds?
Definitely. It's called Cousin Ed's Corner, and it's really like you came over to your cousin's house and had a conversation. I believe in being authentic, being organic, and just unscripted. So if you came over, we would have a conversation about life, love, finance, spirituality, and everything in between. It's really just about what's going on in the world and what's going on with you.
Really cool. It's a more inspirational and motivational podcast then. And do you remember what was the first episode like? Like the first time you grabbed your mic and recorded Cousin Ed's Corner?
I do. I do. Well, it's a long but short story. I've been recording Cousin Ed's Corner for years. I was a part of another podcast named Mr. Moody's Neighborhood, and I would lend segments to the neighborhood as Cousin Ed's Corner. So I've been recording Cousin Ed's Corner for many years, and a young lady told me I need to do it for myself, and I went ahead and I went and just picked up my phone at the time. It was my first one. I picked up the phone and said, "Let me just record it and lend my voice to the world." So it was amazing just to be independent and do it for myself for the first time.
So you just grabbed your phone and recorded your first segment.
First segment on the phone. Yes.
And let me ask you something. Why this kind of genre? Like, why this kind of motivational, inspiring type of content?
I think that we all need it. I think that's what when you wake up in the morning, you have to see what's ahead of you for the day. And I wanted to just inspire people in their day and in their weeks and in their life and just moving forward. And it's another joke of the show is my time on the couch, right? So when instead of going to counseling, it's my time on the couch to get my own motivation. So in speaking to everyone else, I'm speaking to myself really. So it's
Yeah,
my motivation, and it helps me release a lot of things within inside of myself at the same time.
yeah, definitely. I think podcasting has this therapeutical, um, component to it that it not only helps the others that are listening, but as well ourselves because we
Definitely.
get to share things that sometimes we didn't even know was in our mind. So I totally understand what you mean.
Definitely.
Tell me, do you have like a memorable moment in uh, in your episodes or in your podcast? Maybe some great feedback you got from a listener, a way you impacted someone else's life. Do you care to share one of those stories?
I think I'll say it's two most memorable moments. I think interviewing my dad and interviewing my mother.
Okay.
Being able to have that recorded and documented. Me and my mother shared her first interview was about 9/11,
Wow.
and we talked about her being stuck in New York and not able to get out of New York at the time, and the
Oh.
raw emotions that came up behind that episode really hit home. My father being able to find out where he came from and learn more about him, and having him in front of the mic where he couldn't, deflect, finding out about his childhood. Those two are the most memorable shows that I've done that just impacted me, that I go back to, that I can always listen to find out who I really am. So it's an episode called "Who Are We," and it lets you know who you came from, where you came from.
That is that is deep. That's really cool. Having the chance to put your family in front of the mic and ask the questions. Like, how do you prepare yourself for such an interview?
Well, most of my interviews, like I said, are organic. I really is no questions that's written down. I may do a little bit of who the person is beforehand if I'm interviewing somebody I don't know, but it's really about just when you go to your cousin house, you don't have questions, right? When you go to a barber shop, you don't have questions. It's really organic. I think I want to audience, I want the person who's actually coming on, the guest, just to feel the authentic conversation
Mhm.
behind it. So it's really life.
Yeah. It's a kind of style that doesn't fit everyone,
Hmm.
but I guess for you, for your kind of personality, for your kind of content, it makes all the sense. Let's
Yes.
shift gears now towards your stack. So tell me everything. Like, how do you go from idea to production?
Okay. Mostly, like I said, I come down. I This is my lab right here. I'm in the basement, and I pray. I pray that morning, and I get my mind. Most of my recordings are done early morning. Get my mind right, and when I think about what that day is like, is how my motivation comes from for the show. After I have that, I hit record and then go from there. Um, After hitting record and finishing the show, yeah, I go and actually I drop it in Pod Squeeze. It goes straight there. That's my first stop. Once I leave there, I have the full transcript, and from the transcript, I can read over it and see how I want to put it out and digest it to the audience. With your tool, I will say it changed my podcasting life. And I know people who hear this may think that this is all set up, and no, it's the truth. It changed my podcasting life because now I can see what I just recorded instead of having to replay it,
Right.
and you give the snippets that I may need from there. So from there, I write up the episode. I may use your show notes to try to come together with a lot of my content is. But I write up the show notes. From the show notes, I use Podbean as my host. So I
Okay.
run over to Podbean, get all of that into Podbean. After I get the write up done, is when I go back and put the metadata back into the file.
Right.
So I have to put
Hmm.
the metadata back into the file, download the file again, put it in the Podbean, and then it's released from there. Once it's released, I then go to all social media platforms and push it out from there. Podbean pushes it out to the other recording,
Hmm. Streaming
Spotify,
platforms.
streaming
Hmm.
platforms, all of those. So they're there, but I have to go to Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and all those places, and then push it out from there.
Right.
So
Yeah. That's a. I mean, that's a very solid flow, and thank you so much for definitely using Podsquiz. It makes me really happy to hear that it's saving some of your time. You were also telling me before we start that you are not a big fan of the whole process of putting things into social media. What is like? How do you get the motivation to do it then?
because it has to be done.
Yeah.
Like I talked about on my other podcast, Mr. Moody's Neighborhood, we had a full production, but Moody and myself are both from New York. We're both hard nosed and really against social media. But I think throughout the pandemic, there was, for me, because I'm new to it, I found more content that was more related to the topics that I felt close to home, and I think the algorithm brought that closer to me. So now I'm able to have an audience on social media where I can share a lot of my content. So it's not the ratchet stuff. It's not the world star stuff that I maybe thought it was. Maybe it was always there, but I always stayed away from it for that reason. But now that I have my audience and my people that listen, I go there and I'm a little more comfortable doing it now.
Right. Once you find your crowd, right, your
Yes.
listeners, you get to be more authentic. That makes total sense. You release 3 episodes per week, which is amazing. Uh, how do you organize everything? How do you get the motivation? I think that's more the question. Like, how do you get the motivation to release 3 times a week every week?
That's it's been going on for a while now. And when I hear listeners. I don't like calling them listeners. I don't like calling them fans. I like calling them family. When I hear them reply in text or call and say that this show, you know, meant something to them, that's my motivation. Because one time I was late. My son had a game, and I got home late, and somebody hit me up and said, "Where's the show?" And from there on, I knew that they were looking for that show. And anytime Christmas time, New Year's, whenever, they always ask, "Where's the show?" Even if I'm, it's no set time for the show. It's that day, but they're going to ask me where the show is, and that's my motivation. They're thinking that someone else is on the other side looking at their phone waiting for that show. So motivational Monday. Every Monday you're gonna have some kind of motivation. On Wednesday, I give two shows on Wednesday, two different shows on Wednesday. Wind down Wednesday, and sometimes I put out when my sister wins, we all win. So it depends on what that week is. And then on Friday, instead of saying thank God for Friday, I do thank God for everything. So on Fridays, I'm thanking God and giving praise to Him for just the week in general, but not only the week, but for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, for the month, for the year, for each of us out there. So that's where the motivation comes from.
Yeah, I totally get that. Comes from having a voice and having listeners, and yeah, for the first time, someone like rang me up and told me, "Hey, what about this week's podcast?" And I was like, "What? Like, actually, people care about this, and
Yes.
that feels amazing." Where do you see your podcast in the next 5 years? It's a tough one.
It's a tough one because with it being organic and with it being just from the heart, I wanted to touch people. I wanted to be a ministry to people. I wanted to enlighten people. So I can see this as a definite show somewhere on some kind of platform where they can go to uh, and see the show. I want to make it where they can actually see the show and hear the show. I do have guests on, so I want to be able to interview people. So in 5 years, I could see myself having another platform where it's actually being interviews and set times, and where people can come on and have this show on demand.
What are your biggest challenges or what you predict to be your biggest challenges to get to that vision?
Me being me, the one man show of me being me. With having coaching and family and everything else, just carving out more time. Like you already heard, it's 3 days a week with
Right.
production and everything. Carving out more time, bringing more people onto the show as a staff to help out with some of the things that the behind the scene things, the production things that need to be done. So
Yeah,
having a production team behind it.
it's still a lot of work. What is your advice for someone that is trying to grow their podcast? Like, what really worked well for you?
Engagement is always, I would say, engagement with your audience. And one thing I will say that someone told me, you're one share away from hitting big, from getting the notoriety that you want. So keep doing what you're doing, because we all may be like, hey, I only got so many downloads on this one. Well, you need one person to share that show with the right person, and it can go wherever. So
Yeah,
think about I think they call it the Oprah effect. Oprah effect.
yeah,
You just need Oprah to hear it one time, right? That's all
yeah.
you. That's all you really need for your show to blow. But don't look at the numbers every week. Stay focused on your goals and your admirations, and have fun. I would say
Yeah,
have fun doing it.
I
Whenever it's
think
not fun, then is not. It's going to show that it's not fun.
definitely that I cannot agree more. Having fun, it's with any personal project, it's really
Yes,
important. Last question: what would be your advice to your younger self? The younger Ed that is starting his podcast. What would you, if you could go back in time, what would you tell him? Like something you would do different?
I would say open up to social media earlier. I think I was closed minded. You got to be honest with yourself. I was closed minded to what I saw on TV as social media. I think the content has always been great. I can go back and listen to shows. Content's always been great. So be open minded to introduce yourself to other people. I think that's the biggest thing. Don't just keep it to amongst your friends and family. Be open minded to introduce it to other people.
That's great advice, Ed.
Yeah,
Thank you. So, oh no, of course. Where can we hear from you? Like, what are your social media? Like, again, your podcast name. Share everything with us.
definitely. Well, first of all, before I go into that, I want to thank you for the opportunity to have me on. I really appreciate what you and your team are doing over there. Your response times and everything else has been great. Like I said, you have changed my podcasting
No,
career
thank you.
totally. So thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you for having me today. But if anybody want to find me or follow me, you could definitely go to any social media platform and look up Cousin Ed's Corner. That's Ed's plural, EDS. Cousin Ed's Corner. You can actually go to Spotify, or you could say Siri, or any of your play. You could say Alexa, play Cousin Ed's Corner. So no
Nice.
matter where you're at, hopefully it's playing somewhere in somebody's background. 'Cause I just said it, but you can find Cousin Ed's Corner just by saying play Cousin Ed's Corner.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And all the links will be in the show notes. Ed, thank you so much for coming on the show. And yeah, see you on the social media or on the chat.
I definitely appreciate you. Appreciate everybody listening today. Thank you very much.
This podcast is brought to you by PodSqueeze, an essential tool for podcasters that creates show notes, timestamps, clips, and more. Visit podsqueeze.com and use the code PODCASTER for 20% discount in the first 3 months. We release a new episode every Tuesday and Thursday. See you in the next episode of Lessons from a Podcaster.